Welcome back for episode 5 of the Essential Copywriting Skills, this special series within Breakthrough Marketing Secrets. Today's episode is all about how to write compelling headlines. And I don't know if you're like me at all, but when I was getting into copywriting, I created a whole stack, and I'm flipping through it here. I created a whole stack of 3x5 note cards that was just all these proven headlines and headline formulas and headline language and all of that. And I thought, if only I can write great headlines, I can write great copy, because, fundamentally that's the promise of, especially of some of the older copywriting books. Now, I will tell you that without everything else that we have been covering and will be covering in the dozen plus episodes within this series, without all of that, I would say, having a good headline is it's not quite enough, right? But with that, having a good headline can make all the difference in the world. So that's what we're going to cover in today's episode.
These are the proven direct response marketing, copywriting, and entrepreneurship success strategies you can use today to write your own ticket and create the life you want. I am Roy Furr, and this is Breakthrough Marketing Secrets. Now, here's today's breakthrough.
All right, so let's talk about how to write compelling headlines. Number one, what's the role of the headline? What is the role of the headline in your copy? Well, number one, I'll tell you what the role is not. The role of the headline is not to actually make the sale. It's not about making the sale. It's not about closing the sale. It's not about even promoting your product or selling your product. In some cases, with significantly shorter copy or short copy, the headline may feature your product name. It may, feature, especially if you're dealing with speaking to a hyper-aware audience. Last time we talked about market awareness. If somebody is very aware of you, and for example, you're running a sale, then okay, maybe your headline is going to say 30% off this product for these days, right? And in that case, the role of the headline is to actually drive people into the sale. And let's say if you have an extended promotion going on, and you're getting to the deadline for your promotion. Well, at that point, you may actually have a very aware audience, and so you may say, save $100 if you respond by midnight tonight, something like that, right? So the role of the headline in that case, in those very specific circumstances, it may be to stimulate action, but in general, the role of a headline in advertising, especially as you get towards colder audiences, is to get readership. It's to get or viewership or listenership or whatever media you're speaking to. It's to get that initial attention and engagement. And if all you do with your headline is get someone to pay attention to the first sentence, and the first sentence gets them to pay attention to the second, and the second to the third to the etc. down the line, then your headline did its job. And so while I can give you a million rules for how to write a good headline, ultimately your ultimate goal and the role of the headline is to get that initial readership, that initial engagement, that initial audience attention. Now, the right headline can make all the difference in the world. So, the power of headlines is, so there's the classic, Ogilvy on advertising, 10 times as many people read the headline as read the body copy of a print ad in a normal publication. And that's very true. So let's say I'm going through a newspaper. I don't read physical newspapers that much anymore, but remembering, or a magazine or whatever. I'm flipping through the magazine, flipping through the newspaper, and what am I looking at to decide, do I want to read this? Do I not want to read this? Do I want to read? It's the headline, right? And so I look, and when there's a headline that catches my attention, I start reading. If the headline doesn't catch my attention, then I don't read. And so a good headline is going to, maybe 10 times as many people read it, maybe 20 times, maybe 5 times, it doesn't matter. But a good headline is going to take everybody who reads it and compare a terrible headline to a good headline, and you could easily get 10 times the readership and 10 times the response from a single ad just by changing the headline, because you got 10 times the attention on the rest of the sales message. And so headlines can be incredibly powerful. They're worth testing, they're worth studying, they're worth spending some time to get right. And so let's talk about how to write compelling headlines. Now, very early on in the series, when I talked about developing your hook, one of the things that I mentioned was my ABC headline formula. And a good headline tells the audience that this message is for you. It conveys benefits of engaging with the message and or responding, right? But it conveys that there's a benefit to be had by engaging with this. And it creates a sense of curiosity around, this is something that I'm interested in, that like I'm curious about learning more. And when it tells the people, the audience that you want to target, that you have a benefit for them and gives them the feeling of, I want to learn more, well, then a good headline has done its job. But I don't want to dwell on that in terms of talking about headlines today and writing headlines today. Rather, I'd like to dive in, and I am going to actually bounce around a little bit here in my notes. So one of the things that I did, and I showed you this card deck. One of the things that I did when I was new as a copywriter is I studied those lists, like 100 proven headline formulas. And it seems like every old copywriting book has their own list of headlines, and they're absolutely worth looking at and learning from. And even today, like there's lists of like clickbait headlines and stuff that, think what you will about clickbait. Really, people don't like clickbait when it doesn't fulfill on its promise, but people click on clickbait because they're interested in it. And people click on news articles that have really compelling headlines because they're interested in what's promised in the headline. And, so you can study what works in clickbait. You can study what works in news headlines. You can study what works in classic advertising headlines. You can study all of those, and you can test specific proven formulas. And so, for example, I'm pulling the rubber band off this big deck of cards here. How to can be, great language to use in your headline. At last, if it's something that's appropriate, that's an at last. Making a big promise. Offering instant improvement. Let's see, how to get a goal from something common. Something important to you. Your grandmother is in imminent danger. I don't know. If you blank, then blank. So like an if-then headline. How would it feel if you achieved whatever result? And so like it's a whole mix, and like none of those by themselves make a great headline. But when you pay attention to the types of language that people use to get people's attention, you do start to develop proven formulas for writing headlines. And by the way, writing headlines, it's very similar to writing bullets. And actually, last year in one of my monthly insiders calls for BTMS Insiders, I did a whole lesson on writing bullets and proven bullet formulas that would be great to dive into if you are interested in writing better headlines, because being able to write good bullets, oftentimes it just takes picking the best bullet to be your headline. Like that's a classic way to write effective space ad copy or effective direct mail copy. And still it's the same skill, even if you aren't writing a bunch of bullets and picking one as your headline. So anyways, you want to study these classic formulas, you want to study the classic headlines, and one particular practice that I went through when I was fairly new as a copywriter to get good at this was I would flip through this deck and I would say, can I write a how-to headline for this thing that I'm writing about? Can I write a free headline for this thing that I'm writing about? Can I write a you? Can I write an amazing? Can I write a secrets of headline? Can I write an only? Can I write a this headline? Can I write a sale headline? And I would just go through And I would try to write dozens of headlines. And then as I wrote those dozens of headlines, I would say, ooh, I like that, and maybe I can combine them and I can do something else. Or one of them is the main headline, one of them's the subheadline. How can I use the fact that I'm actively thinking about this to write a better headline? And so what you're doing is you're taking proven formulas and you're finding ways to work them together into something that might work for you. And when it comes to writing a headline for your ad, for whatever it is that you're writing for, I will say that testing these proven formulas is a great way to come up with a good headline. Always remembering that audience, benefits, curiosity, those things, going back after you've written your headline and saying, is my audience going to know this is for them? Does this convey a sense of benefit for engaging, and are they going to get some value out of engaging with this? Do I leave them curious at all for what I'm going to say next, or have I fulfilled their curiosity in the headline? And based on your study of classic headlines, you decide, does this headline work or not? And you can test those proven formulas. But I will also say that, and I said this earlier in the series, people respond to, or they give more attention to, things that they perceive as new and unique. And so, for example, for me as a copywriter, I have my own little bias against who else headlines. And if I see a who else headline, I feel like there's nothing new and unique in that, in that ad. I could be completely wrong, but I have my own internal bias against that. And one of the dangers of using these proven formulas is that you can trigger this oh, I've seen this before reaction, which immediately disqualifies you from getting any attention from your prospect. So if it feels too familiar, if it feels too common, if it feels too basic, if it doesn't feel unique, if it doesn't feel new, your prospect is not going to give you the attention that you need to go deeper into your sales message. And so the other thing that you can do is you can test rule breakers. And I don't have a great definition of that, because by definition, rule breakers are indefinable. But I can give you one great example of that. So Stansberry Investment Research, or whatever the official company is, they became best known for a promotion that really started circulating in 2010, 2011, called The End of America. And their headline for this video sales letter was basically one of those warning messages. Warning, the following presentation maybe contains sensitive information and may be objectionable to some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised, right? Whatever the exact headline was, it was basically a viewer discretion is advised message. And it was at the top of the page, and then there was just the video sales letter on the page. And that thing was absolutely gigantic. It did not follow the audience thing. It did not follow the benefits thing, but the curiosity thing for the viewer discretion is advised was definitely in full force at that point. And I would say that probably a lot of the ads that drove traffic to this did satisfy the audience and benefits a little bit. But once you actually got on the page, it was just pure curiosity for what's the content in here that's potentially objectionable, and that I need to, have some discretion about whether or not I would actually pay attention to this. And so you can study classic headlines, till the cows come home, and you can write headlines by formulas all you want. And then, at some point, somebody's going to test a rule breaker and it's going to blow all the rules out of the water. And so don't be afraid when you're writing headlines to write something that doesn't conform. Don't be afraid to write something that breaks some of these rules. Just do it intentionally. And when I when I got started in copywriting and I wrote, this is probably a couple hundred different 3x5 note cards with different headline ideas on it. What I was doing there was I was learning all the rules of all the proven formulas to get really good at understanding how to use that language in my copy. And then I stepped away. I stepped back from those rules and I said, in any given situation, I just want to write the headline that seems to match the situation. And these days, that's what I do. Sometimes I'll put a placeholder headline in the document as I start to write my ad. Sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll write the body copy first and then I'll go back and I'll write the headline. And sometimes I'll write multiples. Oftentimes I'll write multiples, or I'll really finesse and work with it through time to get it to work right. And I know many other copywriters, Clayton Makepeace, for example, on projects that I worked with him on, he was very adamant about, he would put big, compelling headline here, and he would just write that in the document. And then he'd come back at the end and say, now I know what my headline needs to say. Now I know what my headline needs to do. And he would then write his headline. And again, he would do all sorts of things. He would actually use a lot of biblical references in his headlines, primarily from Revelations, because he would say, the 4 horsemen of the coming stock market apocalypse is a famous headline from him. Now, there's audience there, investors, stock market, yeah. Benefits is actually understanding why the market's going to crash, right? And curiosity, what are the 4 horsemen? And is there actually a stock market apocalypse or what? So that was not a formulaic headline, but it was absolutely satisfied the audience benefits curiosity, and great headlines will often do that. Okay, so what else can go into your headline? Well, I have a list here of some more headline components, and maybe this isn't all of them, but it's a pretty good list. So keywords, I find. Oh, and by the way, I talked about bullets and all of that. Email subject lines, it's the exact same thing. The first words in any multimedia script, like a radio script, TV script, video script, YouTube videos, whatever, right? The first words that come out of your mouth are the headline. Titles, that can be headlines. It can all be headlines. And so keywords. Keywords is one important thing worth considering in your headline. So stock market, in the 4 horsemen of the stock market apocalypse, stock market is a keyword. Anybody who's interested in stock investing is going to pay a little bit of extra attention to that. If I have my email subject lines say copywriter or copywriting in them based on my list and my audience, I get more attention. And so every market, every audience, every list has a particular set of keywords that are the topics that they're more interested in. And knowing those for your audience is going to, and using them in your headline is going to improve the amount of attention that you get to your headline and the subsequent copy. Audience identifiers. Now, you could say this is almost the same as keywords, but let's say, for example, I've seen all sorts of ads for Lincoln, Nebraska drivers. Okay, I live in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I drive. Or Lincoln, Nebraska homeowners need to know this one thing. Well, okay, so there's a big audience identifier in there that as a Lincoln, Nebraska homeowner, okay, I'm curious to know what that one thing is, right? And so how can you call out your audience, perhaps in a way that's not saying you as a copywriter, because in certain places like Facebook advertising, you don't necessarily want to call somebody out, especially if it's around a negative condition. So, your blood pressure is high. Well, Facebook doesn't want their users to know that they know that their users have high blood pressure. So there's some audience identifiers you have to be careful with there. But any way that you can reference the audience in your headline can get more attention. So keywords, audience identifiers, the result or benefit that they're looking for. We've talked about the whole problem solution thing throughout the course of this series. To speak to the benefit that somebody wants, to speak to the benefit or the result that somebody wants is a great way to make your headline really interesting. So, for example, in the copywriting space, there's a very famous ad from American Writers and Artists, AWAI, that is retire this year and still make as much money as most doctors, I think. And the retire this year is the result, the benefit, and also make as much money as most doctors. That's also result benefit. So you can talk about the benefit that they want. And that was talking about copywriting, right? But it didn't say copywriting in the headline. It's just like people who want to quit their job, essentially. Problem. So if your audience is problem aware, you can speak specifically to the problem that they have. So, boss frustrating you, ? Here's what to do. Here's what to tell them. And so you speak to the problem that's going on. Leaky roof? ? Oh, that's a problem that's going on. There's just speaking directly to the problem, having the problem spoken about in your headline can get the attention of the people who are facing that problem. Also pain points or symptoms. So maybe they don't have a name for the problem yet. Maybe they don't understand the problem yet, but they do recognize that they're having certain pain points. They're having certain symptoms of this problem. And if you recognize that people within your market are all experiencing a similar pain point, then speaking to that in your headline can be effective. Solution. Identifying the particular solution, especially for solution-aware prospects, is an effective way to get attention in your headline. And then other popular inferior solutions. So a good example of this is in real estate investing. For example, there are people who fix and flip houses. There are people who wholesale houses. There are people who become a landlord. Let's go with those three. So let's say we have something that doesn't require any of those three. That's a way to make money in real estate. Then we might say, how to make a 6-figure income from real estate without fixing and flipping, without owning and renting, and without wholesaling a single property. Okay, so what I did was I directed the attention away from, often with these other popular but inferior solutions, you say without this, without that. And so it's, especially if they're the most expected, if they're the most popular paths to getting the result, but you can promise someone the result or benefit without the other inferior solutions, then it's something that can get attention in your space. Okay, so that's a bunch of headline components: keywords, audience identifiers, results and benefits, problems, pain points, solutions, other popular but inferior solutions. There's more. The trick is you mix them up and you say, what of these would be most relevant? You can even start to take some notes. You could take notes on that list and you could brainstorm. Okay, what are the ways that I can identify my audience? What are the different keywords that I can use? How do they describe the problem? How do they describe the pain points? What are the popular inferior solutions that are not what we're doing? And you just start writing a bunch of combinations of that, like how to get the positive without the negative. This is the secret to positive. Secrets about how to get what XYZ result without pain points or that other people don't want you to know. And you just play around with it until you get something that is really starting to sing to you. Now, another thing that you can do in your headline is you can convey the story. You can convey the story of the ad itself in the headline. Now, a really important thing about this is to make sure that you not only convey the negative part but to, within the headline, maybe the subheadline, very early, you want to imply, if we're going with that problem solution arc, you want to imply not only that I experienced the problem, but that I discovered the solution as well. So I was dead broke until I discovered this money-making secret. Really bad generic copy, really bad generic headline, but it conveys that whole arc that I'm talking about. Or, I was alone again on Saturday night. I thought it was going to be another lonely Saturday night until I discovered this one text message secret that I could send to anyone, any potential partner in my contact book. I don't like. You want to convey the negative and the positive of the story. You want to convey the whole story arc in the headline. You do want to maintain the curiosity. And so it is very easy to say, for example, let's go with that silly little text message thing. When I texted, "Come over now," to my crush, it wouldn't ever be, I knew I'd never have a lonely Saturday night again or something. Like, that's a terrible text message, or maybe it's a great text message. But the thing about that, as an example, is it destroys the curiosity of the simple 3-word text that I sent my crush that ensured I'd never have a lonely Saturday night again. The 3-word text holds on to that curiosity and forces the audience to say, "Ooh, what is this 3-word? Like, if I'm interested in this benefit, what is this 3-word text? I want to know." Okay, so you have to keep the curiosity in the headline. Again, this is one of those things that you almost catch after you've written a bad headline, as opposed to planning it into a good headline. But then when you notice that, then you figure out, how do I edit it? So I didn't have the idea in my head that, simple 3-word text. But when I wrote the bad headline of "Come over now," I said, okay, that's a 3-word text. Okay, maybe that's a much more compelling, more curiosity provoking headline. And then you want to signal the value to come. And so even in that, simple 3-word text, I am promising that you're going to discover this powerful, valuable 3-word text if you just keep reading from my headline or keep paying attention to whatever my message is in whatever media. You want to signal the value that is to come after the headline. And your advertising itself, one of the people that I've learned the most in copywriting from is Gary Bensavenga. And one of his fundamental lessons that he even told to me, one of his most successful promotions ever that mailed over 100 million pieces at favorable economics. He said, one of the reasons that was so successful is because everything about it applied his principle of make your advertising itself valuable, so that when somebody gets your advertisement and they're engaging with your advertisement, they're feeling like, ooh, this is valuable stuff. I'm getting value out of engaging with this advertisement. And your headline should signal the value in the particular ad. And so you want to signal the value to come. Now, one important thing, okay, so actually 2 last little notes in terms of writing headlines. One is chunking. And what I mean by chunking is that when you write headlines or subheads, what you need to do, in addition to putting the right content in there, is you need to create idea chunks that are easy for the mind to digest and understand. And when it comes time to make decisions around line breaks and what gets bolded and all of that, you want to make the decision and not let the designer make the decision or whatever about okay, I need the line breaks around these words because this, like, the secret formula is a chunk that I want the brain to see and recognize immediately. To copywriting success, it is another chunk that I want people to see and recognize, and I want the brain to like get immediately in just 3 words. Okay, the secret formula to copywriting success in just 3 words. And by choosing the chunks, as opposed to the secret formula to copywriting success in just 3 words, like those chunks, you can hear it, are not the right chunks for the brain to immediately like understand the meaning. And so when you write headlines and when you write subheadlines throughout your copy, you want the ideas to be chunked together as much as possible so that the brain has to process less to understand the message that you're trying to get across. And it may sound silly, but the best copywriters that I've ever worked with, like David Deutsch, when he's given me feedback on my copy, that's one of the things that he focused on. That's one of the things that he focuses on. The best copywriters in the world, they focus on chunking ideas inside your headlines because it's those little things that make a big difference. Also, subheads is the last thing that I want to cover here. Subheadlines, writing subheadlines, and like writing subheadlines is the exact same as writing headlines in terms of all the types of like approaches to copy that you want to use. The main difference is that a subheadline is going to be like the headline for the section below it, or the subheadline beneath your main headline. So there's subheadlines beneath the main headline, and there's also subheadlines throughout the body copy. The subheadline beneath the main headline allows you to expand, like the subtitle of a book allows you to expand on the title. And the subheadlines throughout the rest of the copy are headlines for the next little section of text. Okay, so this has actually gone on way longer, and actually this series is delivering way more value than I expected, but still, I'm giving it to you here, and I hope that you are really taking notes and pulling as much value out of this as possible. We've dived into writing compelling headlines. I'll make sure that I include to the Monthly Insiders Call a link in the description of the Monthly Insiders Call where you can find the monthly call on writing compelling bullets, because a lot of the same copywriting that goes into writing compelling bullets is the same as writing headlines. And I'll include a link to BTMS Insiders in general, which is where you sign up. You get unlimited access to all my copywriting and marketing training for one low monthly fee, like Netflix, but for copywriting and marketing training. And those links are in the description with this episode. I'm Roy Furr. This has been a daily episode of Breakthrough Marketing Secrets, but part of the Essential Copywriting Skills series on this episode, Writing Compelling Headlines. Leave a comment with this video. Let me know on a scale of 1 to 10 how valuable you're finding this series and why, and this one in particular. Also, tap that like button before you go so you get more content like this delivered to you, and so the magical algorithms of the internet know to share it with more people like you who will find it valuable. You can certainly share it with folks directly, and subscribe before you go. You can subscribe here. You can also go to breakthroughmarketingsecrets.com. And by the way, if you're watching this anywhere besides in the series itself, by late June 2021, there's going to be a link where you can sign up to get this entire Essential Copywriting Skills episode series in order. And so check out that link in the description as well. Again, I'm Roy Furr for Breakthrough Marketing Secrets. I always aim for a 10 out of 10 value. I hope that I'm delivering it here, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next episode. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you once again for tuning in to this daily episode of Breakthrough Marketing Secrets. Remember, check out the links with this episode for even more value. Now make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, and engage in every way you can to keep this show going and growing and delivering daily value to you. I'll catch you soon for your next big breakthrough.